YouTubers, welcome back to the New Year Yankees Pooping series. We got another 2 chapters to go. To continue with. This is a bit of a series, a little mini series, but that's okay. So this, yeah. So anyway, let's get to work. Chapter 3, 1929 to 1941. Building the Dynasty. No matter how good a baseball team is, it can never stay together for too long. Players age, get injured, or are traded. And new and different players have to take up the slack. In 1929, it became clear that the Yankees were experiencing the effects of such changes. Other players and teams rose to superiority. And by the season's final weeks, it was the Philadelphia Athletics, not the New York Yankees, who were in first place. Then the situation got even worse. September, manager Bill Higgins came ill with an infection. He died on September 23rd. Yee! Poor Higgins. Excuse me. I can't give me the look. Emmy, why are you giving the look? The Yankees were crushed, particularly Babe Ruth. Higgins was treating him like his own son. In the end, the Yankees wound up 19 games behind. The Athletics. There would be no pay in the World Series, World Championship for the reigning champs that year. It was time to rebuild. The progress went slowly. Both 1930 and 1931, Yankees again wins behind Philadelphia. Ruth and Garrett continued to play well, but New York had a difficult time replacing the other stars. Jacob Rupert knew the best way to build a team was to groom young players so they'd be ready to fill the gaps when needed. The team hired a man named Doris Wise to run their minor league system and develop talent. They also took on a new manager, Joe McCarthy. Not everyone approved of McCarthy, who had managed the Chicago Cubs of the National League until he was fired in 1930. Some believed the manager's job should go to Babe Ruth, including the Babe himself. But by mid-season in 1932, McCarthy won most of them over. On his watch, youthful pitchers Lefty Gomez, Red Ruffin, both emerged as big winners, and all of a sudden the Yankees were contenders once again. And around to another pennant, and not Connor Twist, McCarthy's old team in the World Series. The first two games were held in New York. The Yankees won both easily. Then the series moved to Chicago. Game 3 is one of the most famous World Series history. It was certainly one of the most dangerous, with the two dugouts trading insults and jeers from minute one. The fans were equally loud of analysis, especially when Babe came to bat. But the big man gave as good as he got. When he backed up his turn to play with a 3-run homer in the first inning. But the Cubs going back to tie things up 4-4 going into the 5th inning. Then Ruth came up to bat opposite pitcher, Shorty. The Cubs dug out in the stands. I don't have it. I removed all sorts of names. And Babe let Ruth's first pitch pass by for a strike. And then he turned to the Cubs bench and held up a finger and said, "That's a strike one." After 2 balls, Ruth threw another strike. Roof didn't swing, but looked over to the club bench with a big grin on his face and waved his hand, holding up two fingers, as if saying, "That's a straight two." At least that's what most people saw. Others insisted that Roof pointing the center field as if to say, "That's where I'm gonna hit the next pitch." The crowd was on his feet and the Cubs were screaming. But Roof stood calmly at the plate, waiting for the pitch. Roof threw the ball over the plate. Pow! Roof crushed the ball. It was so high and deep and far over the fence, over the center field stands, and into the street. As Roof jogged around the bases, he laughed and pointed to the Cubs. The Yankees won the game 7-5. Roof's home run came to be known as the gold shot, as he really predicted he was going to hit the ball over the center field fence, and then did so. Of course, he really did. As soon as the at-bat career shows. But newspaper reporters always eager for a good story wrote that he had, and Roof never denied it. After all, it had been a great shot, called or not, boosted by their classic Roof homer. The Yankees went on to win the series. Roof's fifth inning blast was also the last great moment of his Yankee career. In 1933, he finally began to show owing his age. Luke Gehrig picked up some of the slack, but the Yankees fell back and failed to win the pennant that year or the next. Before the beginning of the 1935 season, the Yankees made a tough decision to release Babe Ruth. He signed with the Boston Braves, but only played a few more months before retiring. The Yankees were now Luke Gehrig's team. After being overshadowed by Ruth for most of his career, he knew it was up to him to lead New York back to first place. He would need help, however. Fortunately, help was on the way, in the form of a young outfielder named Joel DiMaggio. A native Francisco, DiMaggio first made his mark in baseball as a minor league outfielder for the Francisco Seals of the Pacific Coast League. A great hitter in 1933, DiMaggio amazed young minor league fans by getting a hit in 61 consecutive games. He was also an excellent center fielder who made to glide over the ground as he ran. DiMaggio impressed several major scouts. A number of teams made up for Savannah. But then, dun 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 dun. In 1934, he hurt his knee. 17 of the Yankees were scared off. They paid the Seals $25,000 and gave up 5 players for the Reds to DiMaggio. It was a big gamble, but one that paid off handsomely. DiMaggio's knee healed, and his bounce back at almost .400 for the Seals in 1935. In 1926, the Yankees decided DiMaggio was ready to play in the majors. On the very beginning of the season, he was terrific in it, and he just got better. At season's end, he had hit .323 with 29 home runs. The rest of the Yankees were just as strong. Many baseball historians consider the 1936 Yankees just as good, or even better than the 1917. They hit .300 so team, and 5 different players knocked in more than 100 runs. They won ahead by almost 20 games, and went on to beat the Giants in the World Series. They were nearly as good the next year, and Joe DiMaggio was even better. He smashed 42 home runs. He smashed 46 home runs. Luke Gehrig added 37 of his own. They had the duo DiMaggio and Gehrig came almost as featured as Ruth and Gehrig had one spin. The two sluggers led the Yankees to and the World Series both in 1937 and 1938. Jacob Rupert took particular pleasure in the 1938 victory. He had been the owner of one of the best teams in Major League Baseball since 1914. But now the man responsible for bringing Babe Ruth to New York and building Yankee Stadium was dying. In mid-January of 1939, he made one final request. He wanted to see Babe Ruth one more time. Ruth rushed to his side. Rupert passed away a few hours later. Control of the team was transferred to general manager Ed Barrow. Rupert's death wasn't the only tragedy to strike the team that year. The Yankees looked forward to another champion season in 1939. But during spring training, Luke Gehrig looked awful and played even worse. He couldn't hit a fastball anymore. His movements were stiff and awkward. He sometimes stumbled or appeared as though he was losing his balance. One sports writer described him as him looking like a man trying to lift trunks into the back of a truck. All the Yankees hoped that he would come around once the season started, but Gehrig just continued to go downhill. Many games he only collected 4 hits, all fake signals. Gehrig had never been a selfish player. He believed he was laying the team down. So on May 2nd, the Yankees prepared to play Detroit, made a decision. We both met Joe McCarthy and told him, "I'm not helping the team anymore. I want you to take me out of the lineup." McCarthy didn't argue with him. Gehrig had played in a record 2,130 consecutive games. Being taken out would end that run. So McCarthy realized that Iron Horse had to be serious. Abe Laddick played for space, but Luke Gehrig sat on the bench and watched. Those closest to Gehrig understood then that something was very wrong with him. Gehrig himself recognized that he was sick. In June, he traveled to a famous hospital in Minnesota, the Mayo Clinic, where doctors diagnosed him with a rare disease called amyotrophic lateral ALS. ALS affects the body's nervous system. Over time, the nerves that control muscles stop working. Patients can no longer make their bodies do what they want them to do. Sadly, there's nothing any doctor could do to reverse the course of disease, for there is no cure for ALS. Look at him now knew why he was stumbling and why he couldn't hit anymore. It was because he was dying. The baseball world was devastated when word of Garrett's condition became public. The Yankees were particularly distraught. They weren't just going to lose a valuable player, but a good friend as well. On July 4th, they decided to hold Luke Garrett Appreciation Day at Yankee Stadium. All Garrett's old teammates showed up, including Babe Ruth. As the Yankee crowd chanted, "Beat on Garrett." Lou stood up to a microphone near home plate and made the most famous speech in the history of baseball. "Fans," he said, "for the past 2 weeks you have been reading about Matt and Ray I got. Yet today I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth." He went on to mention how fortunate he felt to play for the Yankees, and to have 2 wonderful parents and a loving wife. And wasn't yet. "I might have had a bad break, but I have an awful lot to live for." Then Garrett left the field for the last time. He died 2 years later. And ever since that time, ALS has also been known as Lou Gehrig disease. Somehow, his Yankee teammates were able to focus on the rest of the season. Team Madrigal, in particular, was magnificent. The Yankees rolled to another pennant, playing 106 games and then sweeping the Cincinnati Reds in 4 games to win their 4th consecutive World Championship. Yet this victory was overshadowed by telephone news that following Europe a month earlier, on September 1st, 1939, Adolf Hitler was Nazi army invaded Poland. 2 days later, Poland's allies, including England and France, had declared war on Germany. Germany's allies responded by husband and man to Hitler's side. World War II had begun. Many in the United States wanted the country would join the fight against Hitler. But for the time being, President Roosevelt chose to stay out of conflict. Still, many Americans kept an eye on ongoing struggles overseas, even as they continued with their usual activities. One of those activities was watching baseball. In 1941, in 1940, many fans wondered if the Yankees would add a 5th World Series title to their record. They didn't. In fact, they finished in 3rd place, behind champions Detroit and Cleveland. The following season looked like to be a repeat of the previous one, but the Yankees got off to a terrible start. On May 14th, the 4-time champs record was only 14-13. A big reason for their poor showing was because Shorty was slumping at the plate. But one New York sport writer noted ominously that when Madrigal begins to hit again, he'll pull the Yankees with him. Madrigal got a hit the very next day. Then he got a hit in the next game, and the next game, and the next. By June 2nd, was that day, for Luke Garrett passed away that day. Madrigal's hitting streak had lengthened to 19 games. It was not over, not by a long shot. By now, fans all over the country were keeping track of DiAngelo's streak, following it closely as they were following the increasing violence in Europe. DiAngelo did not disappoint. One way and another, he kept getting at least one hit per game. On July 2nd, he hit in his 45th straight game, beating the 16 record of 41 set by Billy Keller in 1897. The Yankees, meanwhile, were busy maintaining their streak of their own. On the dismissal 14-13. Record on May 14th. They had jumped to an amazing 54-27. When DiMaggio beat Keller's record, they were in the midst of a winning run of 14 consecutive games that began on June 28th and ended July 14th. Three days after the 9th streak ended, the Yankees faced the Cleveland Indians at Cleveland. DiMaggio hit in 56 straight games, raising the feat up the streak. He and the team and fans everywhere hoping to stretch his hits to 57 that day. Before the game, DiMaggio straight their cap to the Colts, saying and felt he playing the lefty Gomez. Not surprisingly, the cap driver recognized the players, especially the one known nationwide as the Yankee Clipper. As they rose to the game, the cabbie said something to DiMaggio that it's gone in baseball history. I got a strange feeling on both that you're gonna get stopped tonight. DiMaggio, like many ball players, was superstitious. Yeah, apparently he took Cap's driver's dire prediction strike. In fact, when the cabbie dropped the players at the stadium, DiMaggio gave the man 50 cents, even though the fare itself was only 20 cents. The game began soon after. In his first at bat, DiMaggio hit a rocket toward first baseman Kent Kutter. Some infielders may miss the catch. But Kutter was one of the best glove men in the league. Backhanded the ball and cut the ball first base as DiMaggio raced to the back. The ball on DiMaggio arrived almost simultaneously. The ball got there just a second sooner. The umpire held out his hand and yelled, "Out!" DiMaggio hit that dugout. He later blamed the many conditions around home plate for a slow start out of the box. But then he didn't complain. He knew he had other opportunities to keep his streak alive. But his next time up, he walked. One time after that, he grounded out to catcher again. Suddenly, his eighth inning. DiMaggio had only one more chance. With a run at first, DiMaggio hit a hard batter off Jim Pegley. He went shortstop, Lou Barlow gloved the ball and whoop, 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 whoop. I flipped it to second. Second baseman touched the bag and threw to first. The double play had only taken seconds. Well, that was plenty of time to get DiMaggio out. The capture was State stealing it become reality. Then insult DiMaggio load the Yankees down. Bet DiMaggio got hits in the next 16 games. Yankees, meanwhile, rolled to another pennant. And then earned a chance to face the Brooklyn Dodgers in the World Series. The Dodgers were a great team, but they were no match for the Yankees. New York won 5 games. With that contest over, Americans turned their attention to the war in Europe. They believed Roosevelt had kept them out conflict for far too long. They wondered what it would take for him to declare war. They got their answer on December 7th, 1941. That morning, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Suddenly, the United States was at war. And baseball wasn't quite as important. Chapter 4, 1942 to 1950. War stories. Soon after the attack on Pearl Harbor, baseball conditioner Ken Swat that's President Roosevelt in question. What do you want baseball to do? Roosevelt responded, I feel it would be best if the country baseball kept going. The president sent the sport known as the national pastime would help the country's morale during the war. Like every other major league team, the Yankees were determined to do their part. Some Yankees, like pitcher Johnny Struman, enlisted in the military, others joined the reserves, registered for the draft. The Yankees began the 1942 season unturned, with many of their players will be able to play the entire year. Nonetheless, they still won 103 games and another pennant. Fortunately, this time they lost the Red Sox on the St. Louis in 5 games. A few days after the end of the series, shortstop Philip Roosevelt joined the service. Though DiMaggio entered a few months later. In all, a total of 26 Yankees players served in the military during World War II. Most other teams lost a similar number of players. The Yankees treated pinstripes abilities. Cup scrambled finding good players. The pickings were slim, however, with full consisting of those who were too young, too old, or not always unfit for military service. Nonetheless, the team still managed to win another pennant in 1943. Outfielder Charlie Kelly cracked 31 home runs, and the Yankees pitching staff was deepest in the league. They met the Cardinals in the World Series again and beat them in 5 games. The war had even greater impact on baseball in 1944 and 1945. The Yankees roster was filled with players with otherwise might have been in the major leagues, like second baseman Snuffy Sternweiss, whose ulcers kept him from serving in the military. The team finished in 3rd place in 1944 and consulted 3 men, like Beck Patel, Dan Topping, and Del Webb. This trio could not build a better team, however. The Yankees finished in 4th place in 1945. But in truth, few people but most vivid baseball followers took notice. Perhaps the people over were too busy summing in World War II, although they were just beginning to recognize that the impact the six-year struggle had on the world. Baseball was not immune to the effects of the war, of course. Players had been at the top of their game or lost 2 or 3 years of military service, while many stayed in shape while playing for teams sponsored by the military. They were just that much older when they turned to the game. No one knew the players would be just as good as they were before the war. The Yankees began the 1946 season with Don't DiMaggio back in center field. They were still missing players like Phil Rusto, second baseman Joel Gordon. Soon became clear that the Yankees weren't the team of stars anymore. The Boston Red Sox, on the other hand, were loaded. Before the war, Boston was the team of promising young players like outfielder Ted Williams and infielders Johnny Pesci and Happy Dover. Now, all those players were in their prime. They made the Yankees look old and slow. Boston fans were excited. Ever since Bakersfield had been sold to the Yankees, the Red Sox had come up short compared to New York. Now it appeared that the two clubs were on equal footing. Boston took command of the pennant race early in 1946, and they made New York's manager Joe McCarthy resign, and former Yankee catcher Bill Hickey took over his position. The Giants did not make any difference. The Red Sox won 104 games in the pennant. The Yankees then started 17 games behind. Here now, Boston lost the 1946 World Series to St. Louis. They were heavy favorites to win the pennant in 1947. Until they had Ted Williams, strongest hitter in the major leagues. The Yankees had Don't DiMaggio, of course, but prior to the start of the season, playing Joe had surgery on his heel. When the season opened, he was still recovering. Over the first few weeks of the season, the Yankees struggled. Then they played the Red Sox in a 4-game series. Or rather, they crushed the Red Sox in a 4-game series. Beating them 9-0, 5-0, 17-2, and 9-3. So, DiMaggio completely outplayed Ted Williams. Pittman still had plenty left to offer. Whap whap. The Sneaky Sackies got creamed. The end. The victories gave Yankees some momentum. In late June, they marked on a 19-game winning streak that put the pennant in their pockets. Meanwhile, the Brooklyn Dodgers captured the National League pennant. They're led by rookie Jackie Robinson, the first African American to play in Major League Baseball in the 20th century. Robinson's presence caused many to ask when the Yankees will sign an African American player. Already, the Cleveland Indians have followed the Dodgers by making Larry Doby the first African American League. but the Yankees were slow to even consider signing African ball players. This shit was thus wasn't important to either team president, Larry McCall, or general manager, Joey Vitis. And the Yankees didn't feel the need to change. Eventually, the resistance to engagement would prove costly. The Yankees' Dodgers World Series was a classic thriller. Five out of the first 6 games, the two clubs fought close battles. In Game 4, New York pitcher Bill Bevins had 2-1 and carried a no-hitter into the 9th inning. Brooklyn's one run that come on walks in the 5th inning. Now Bevins needed only 3 outs to become the first pitcher to throw a no-hitter during the World Series. With 1 out, he walked the batter. Then he got Isaac Jorgensen on the pop-up. Evans was 1 out away from mortality. The base runner stole 2nd out ever. Then Evans gave out yet another walk to put men at 1st and 2nd. Dodger L. Confidole stepped up to the plate. Evans pitched carefully for a good phone goal, caught one cleanly and sliced a line drive to right field. Yankee outfielder Tommy hit Rich, knowing the no-hitter was on the line. Raced back to the wall. After the ball, he had 2 choices: go for an nearly impossible but game-ending catch, or let the ball hit the wall and replay it as quickly as possible for the out. Till this moment, he decided to go for the catch, but the ball went over his head, veering off the wall and bouncing away. As Hendrick, Rich, but not to find the ball, both Brooklyn runners dashed around the bases. Both scored. Evans lost its no-hitter, and the Yankees lost the ballgame on 1 pitch. Confidole was the star in Game 6 too, snagging Tony Mandrell's long drive. Now the end for the Brooklyn win. Well, then it didn't matter. New York came back to win Game 7, his 11th World Series title. In 1948, the Yankees and Red Sox resumed the battle for the AL pennant. Red Sox even higher for Yankee manager Joe McCarthy. This time, however, Boston edged out the Yankees in the final days of the season. The Red Sox finished in the tie with Cleveland and lost the pennant in the playoff game. The Yankees, meanwhile, by manager Bucky Harris, and Casey Steingel. At first, Steingel, former player with the Brooklyn Dodgers, who had failed as a manager for both Brooklyn and Boston Braves, seemed an odd choice. He looked like a cartoon character, and somehow everything he said sounded funny. As one sports writer wrote, it was more fun losing with Steingel than winning with someone else. The New York Rangers enjoyed them. They didn't seem serious enough to beat the manager of the Yankees. But Steingel was no dummy! He had been in baseball his entire life. He knew his players and he knew how to win. He proved it when the Yankees and the Red Sox resumed the rivalry in 1949. On paper, the Red Sox were the better team. The Yankees battled with injuries all year long. DiMaggio, in particular, missed much of the year with a bone spur in his knee. Heel. It didn't matter. Sangel always seemed to know who to put in the lineup. The two teams were neck and neck for much of the season. Then in September, DiMaggio contracted pneumonia and was sidelined. The Red Sox pulled ahead by 1. Boston came into New York for the last 2 games of the season. To win the pennant, the Yankees needed to win both contests. So DiMaggio was still weak from pneumonia, but he insisted on playing. Sox led early on, 4-0. But the Yankees and DiMaggio didn't quit. In the 4th inning, the Yankee golfer lasted a double that helped New York score twice. New York caught fire and stormed back to win 5-4. Now the two teams are tied for first place. The final game of the regular season would decide the pennant. This time, the Yankees took a commanding 5-0 lead in the game. And the Sox staged a comeback that took them within 1. And then they came up short. New York won 5-4 and took the pennant. They passed the crosstown rivals, the Brooklyn Dodgers, again in 1949. The Dodgers were determined to win this time, but the Yankees had all the momentum. New York rolled over Brooklyn in 5 games. Once again, the Yankees were world champions. On paper, the Yankees appeared unstoppable. Since 1921, they have been in 16 World Series and won 12. Yet when the 1950 season got underway, all the experts picked the Red Sox to win the pennant. They pointed out that 26-year-old DiMaggio was slowing down, and the Yankees didn't really have another big star. Not really mattered, however. The Yankees' farm system was beginning to reset the club. On opening day in Boston, the Red Sox jumped out to a 9-0 lead. Then the Yankees came pounding. Like the pounding son! Pound, pound, pound. In fact, win the game 15-10. That victory set the tone for the season. That year saw the emerge of great new players. Catcher Yogi Berra, famous for his puzzling one-liners, Mercedes shortstop Bill Bristol had the best season of his career, and the American League's MVP award. Rookie pitcher Riley Ford came up this season and went 9-1. With this town, New York ended the season with a first place record of 98 wins, 56 losses. The Yankees faced the Philadelphia Phillies in the World Series. They won the first game by a single run. Game 2 proved to the world that Joe DiMaggio still had plenty of slug left in him. The score had been tied 1-1 since the 5th inning. Then, top of the 10th, DiMaggio came out to the plate and whooped the pitch for a home run. New York won the game 2-1 and took the next 2 contests as well. To face world champion New York Yankees is commonplace. The Yankees didn't mind. They let the way that sounded. I wanted to hear over and over again. But what they? Thank you so much for reading chapters 3 and 4. Next time we'll look at chapters 5 and 6. Bye.